Welcome everybody, lovely to have you with us. It's really great to have you on the session today on our webinar. This is all about live online learning. It is a question and answer session. This is me, my name's Jo, I run Lightbulb Moment, and we focus on design and delivery of webinars and virtual classrooms. You might well know me already. We've got some stuff on LinkedIn and we've got some stuff on our website about me. I won't bore you with that too much. But we do also have Mike with us today. Mike, tell us about your role here today and why do we have the same last name?
Yes, certainly. So Jo and myself are siblings and both run Lightbulb Moment. And today I'm here in the capacity of a producer. So if you have any questions, let me know in the chat panel.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. I'm really looking forward to using the chat panel, and also we have the questions and answer panel as well. So let's get on with these questions. First of all, oh, Natalie, you're in Swansea where it's usually sunny, but you're all confused by the sun. That is no good at all. Okay, so Jane Thompson, first of all, what you are asking us in the Q&A panel is on a Mac how to do a screenshot. So that's Shift, Command and 4 to do that. And what I've done there is I've replied to that publicly, so everybody should be able to see that in that question and answer pod down at the bottom left corner of the screen. And I can't take credit for that one, Jane, unfortunately. That was Mike that went and found that for you. So what we've got is from Jackie is a question saying, my client has confirmed that they would like to use Skype for business for online learning. So any pointers for getting up to speed with that application? Interesting, Jackie. What Mike is going to do is hopefully cover for me sneezing in a moment. Here we go.
Yes, I think Jo was about to say we've got a post in our free community which goes into more details about Skype for Business, which I'm just about to paste in.
Thank you very much indeed. There was a lovely little sneezing fit there, and nobody noticed that at all, did they? Did we get that? I think we covered it. So what we have is on our community some people who have been using Skype for Business. It's not a virtual classroom tool in the same way that what we're using today is, or something like Zoom, which has got the breakout rooms and emoticons and all of that kind of thing. But I always say the best tool is the one that you've got. So it's definitely about going with what it is you have available to you and making the most of it. So Jackie, go and have a look on that community. You'll be able to see some links about how people are using it, some of the things you can do. And it's about definitely keeping it super simple. And I think we've discussed that on our Q&As before. And just making sure that you're focusing on the conversation and the interaction with the tools that you do have available to you. So it's absolutely our pleasure, Jackie. Another question we have from Jane. She says, when working with a group, how do I get deep learners to respond rather than the quick typers? That is a good question, Jane. Let's jump into our chat window here. So I've shared that question with Jane from Jane into the Q&A. Let's come up with some ideas together. So what Jane is wondering about is those deep thinkers, the people that don't want to respond with a quick thumbs up or green tick, the people that don't want to just kind of quickly type in chat window, which ironically is what I'm asking you to do right now. What kind of ways have you engaged people that way in the past? What have you come up with as a different way for those deep learners rather than the quick responses? So I'm going to be quiet for a moment and let you have a think and type something in the chat. So we've had some time here to think about this question: when working with a group, how do I get deep learners to respond rather than the quick learners or the quick typers? So let's see what it is that you have shared in the chat window. Alistair says breakout rooms, discussion with peers, and Diane saying the same, and that the whiteboard can be useful. So what you can do here, Jane, whatever software it is you're using, if you've got like a virtual classroom level piece of software, what you can do is use those breakout rooms for people to go and have those discussions. Now, a lot of the sessions that I run, we use the breakouts fairly quickly for maybe 5-minute kind of conversations. But this is a little bit about what it is that you want to run in your sessions, how you plan it, how you design it, and how you deliver it. So those discussions could be 10 or 15-minute discussions if that's appropriate to whatever the conversation is. And of course, what you can also do with breakout rooms is you can assign the people that you want to be together. So if you want a quick learner and a deep learner to bring out maybe the best in each other, maybe you'd pair them up. If maybe you want your deep learners in a conversation on one topic and your quicker learners or your kind of more immediate thoughtful reflectors in another group, they might have 2 questions or 3 questions to deal with. So you could plan some of your breakout rooms that way. Diane saying the whiteboard can be useful. It can be good to get the ideas out there and for people to think on. It could be creative and colourful, which is nice. Thank you, Diane. Alistair adds the chat pod can still work with a longer pause. Short answer polls also limit to a single response, which won't let the quick responders overwhelm. So there's a really interesting point there from Alistair about giving people more direction so they're not overwhelmed if that's the issue. If we're thinking that the learners want to think a little bit more and a little bit more deeply, then having that longer pause. So I tried to demonstrate that briefly in a webinar style with what we were doing just then, just giving you a little bit more quiet time to go in and think and go and type things in. So thank you for that, Alistair. Welcome, Fiona. You've just joined us. Lovely to have you here. We're answering the question, Fiona, when working with a group, how do I get deep learners to respond rather than the quick learners and typers? Fiona, no problem that you're late. Don't worry at all. Just letting you know where we're at. Natalie answers this question saying, I think signalling to people that you want them to take their time to mull something over first before jumping in with quick responses. It gives everybody an equal chance. But if people have better suggestions, I'd love more tips on this too. Natalie, you're always so lovely. I really like the idea of signalling to people, whether it's a quick question or whether it's something where they do have time to respond more deeply. So for instance, Natalie, at the end of my sessions, I always ask, what's your light bulb moment from today? And I'm going to do exactly the same today. But the terminology, the wording that I use is something like, you might want to reflect on this more deeply, but what is top of mind? What's kind of fresh for you to be thinking of right now? And hopefully that's signalling to people it's just a quick one for what's now, without saying you can't respond a little bit deeper on this. Mike, I've got some more here from Jackie and Alistair as well, but what are your thoughts so far on this too?
Yeah, I'm just wondering also about potentially using swim lanes so that then you are making sure you get a response from each of the attendees as well. That's just an idea I have.
Thank you very much. And I wonder if we all know what swim lanes are. Look at the top of your screen and you should either see a hand up or a picture of a person with their hand in the air. If you know what swim lanes are, go and click that, please. Now, if you're in the app, you'll see the hand up. If you're using the browser, you'll see a hand like a waving hand. So if you know what swim lanes are in live online learning, go and click that hand up or that waving hand icon. So Fiona knows what it is, but it looks like most of the rest of you, some of you do. Okay. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's just a slide and it's just got a table on it. So you've got a slide in PowerPoint with a table on it with the number of rows of people in your session. And then they've got space to put their name on the left and then go and put their answer on the right. And it gives everybody their own bit of space, which is really, really nice. So that can give a subtle pressure that you want them to answer and put something in, But as Natalie says, you can use your signalling and work through things in a sense that gives people the time to do it. And you can read out and discuss with some people that have written already whilst others are thinking and typing. So thank you for that, Natalie. Jackie in the chat window says, position the question as, you'd love to hear from everyone in response to this question. That's a really good one too, Jackie, because sometimes our questions in live online learning are going to be, if you've had this experience, or if you don't know this, or tell me about a time when, and not everybody's included. So I think that's a really good point on making sure that you ask everybody to answer in that too. Mike.
Yeah, I just wonder if maybe explaining chat, hold, and send, because this could have another way of ensuring you get that information.
Oh, no, there's a good idea. So chat, hold, and send, it's a different technique. It's not for the deep thinking as such, although you can get some of that in there because you can build up. So what I'd like to do is just explain this to you. The chat, hold, and send is where we ask a chat question, and then what we do is you guys type in, but you hold off sending your response. And then what you do is you use the green tick or check mark or thumbs up to say you're ready. And when everybody's done it, then we make sure we all send at the same time. Let's practice that first of all. Have a look at the top towards the left of your screen. If you are in the browser today, what you'll see is the waving hand icon. And next to that is a down pointing arrow, and you can choose for thumb up, agree. If you are in the application, which is Fiona and Alistair, look at the top left, you'll see the hand up icon, and next to that, you'll see a down pointing arrow, and you can click the green tick, agree. So whichever one that you have got, please go and try that out first of all. So it's the thumbs up, and it will come up green in the participant panel on the right, or it's the green tick, depending on which system you're in. Brilliant. That's the button that you will be going and pressing in just a moment. So let me ask you a really quick question. So this is going to be definitely a top of mind quick one, not a deep learning question. What is your favourite season of the year? Spring, summer, autumn, or winter? Favourite season of the year? Type something in and then green tick or thumb up to say you're ready to go. So don't hit send. Don't send it out. We're doing it all in quiet, all in secret. Type in your favourite season of the year and then thumb up or green tick when you've typed your answer and you're ready to go. So Jane, you've clicked the hand up, which is absolutely fine today. That can work fine too. So we're just waiting for Diane to click that green tick or thumb up when you are ready, Diane. Absolutely brilliant. So everybody hit send or click on that speech button, that speech icon, that bubble. Brilliant. So we've got spring, autumn, or spring's lovely, isn't it? But autumn, you get the colour. So what we've got here, thank you everybody for typing in your answers and hitting the speech bubble or clicking send, clicking the arrow, is we've got a way of making sure that everybody's got time to think of their answer, to type something in, to tell us they're ready. And we've all sent at roughly the same time. And what this allows us to do is basically kind of not be influenced by other people's answers. So it's not necessarily a huge amount of time for a huge amount of deep thinking, as Jane is kind of highlighting, but it is just a different way to get people to think about their responses rather than seeing what everybody else is typing in. And Fiona says, I really like that approach. Brilliant tip. Thank you. It's my pleasure. It takes a moment to explain it and get people ready. We have to be aware that maybe 7 times out of 10 people will actually kind of send something by mistake. But as long as you make light of it, it's absolutely fine. And also Fiona further up in the chat had suggested, could we put people into smaller breakout groups and ask them to share with each other? And I think the idea of small breakout groups there, Fiona, is really good. We can put one person in a breakout room if we really want to, but 2 or maybe 3 would allow them a bit more kind of discussion. It's the balance between the in-depth discussion and having the right amount of time for that for your session versus having different opinions and making sure that you have the right pace in your session as well. So that's a really good question. So thank you very much, Jane, for sharing that. And Jane, I noticed that what you did is you typed your answer to the chat hold and send in the question pod. So I wasn't clear enough about that. I meant in the chat pod, my apologies. But we got your answer there as well. Thank you very much. So we do have the question and answer pod on the left-hand side. Go and do use that for your questions, anything that you want to go and share. Something that we've been kind of looking at recently in live online learning and with the kind of coronavirus and COVID-19 stuff that's been going on is about how we connect with each other's. And especially whilst we're working remotely. So this was more about kind of remote work as opposed to kind of delivering training. But I thought this was a useful kind of slide to look at in terms of that. Now, I'm aware that some of you should be able to see the slide if you're in the browser. But I think there are just some things here that can be useful to think about, such as using the webcam. Is using the webcam something you've been doing in your training a lot recently? Use that hand up or that green tick or that thumbs up if that's something you've been using a lot. And do remember you've got the chat or you've got the Q&A if you want to go and ask a specific question. So is the webcam something you've been using a lot in your session? So hand up or green tick or thumbs up, whichever one you want to use at the top of your screen. Is that something you've been using a lot? And if it is, or even if it isn't, let us know in the chat window, why has it been useful? Why has that been good? Or why have you not been using it? So Fiona, Jane, Alistair and Diane have all said, yes, we've been using it. So let us know in the chat window, why has that been good? And Jackie's put a red X saying, or a hand thumbs down saying, well, actually, no, I haven't been using it so much. So let us know in the chat window why that is. Because, you know, all the stuff we're seeing perhaps on our Facebook feed or our LinkedIn feed are just screen grabs of video calls is probably what I'm seeing a lot of, and I imagine you're seeing a lot of those things too. So let us know in chat to share those tips and ideas. Why have you been using it, or why haven't you been using it? And Jackie, you say I've not delivered any online training so far. That's absolutely fine. That's the reason we're here, is to go and learn things and share things. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are and what people share. Diane says, it's good to see colleagues, particularly as working across the globe, so it aids listening to English when it's not their first language. That's a really good point, Diane, because you can pick up on all of the body language stuff that goes with that too. Thank you, Diane. Alistair says, working remotely, it helps build a connection with teammates, and that's kind of the whole point, by seeing them. And if you look on the slide in the bottom right, it says things like share non-work things, or in the top left it sort of says in the middle, show some of the space you're in. You can get a sense maybe of the room they're in, the building they're in, of whatever kind of funny, silly things people have got on their desks or in their workspaces, of their kids or pets. There's been lots of that. There's been lots of funny memes of that as well on social media. Natalie says, same reason as Jackie, I'll be using it though. And it really is a good thing for seeing each other, seeing a real life person. I remember being on a virtual conference years and years ago. It was set up by Colin Steed, who does Learning Now TV, way before the virtual conferences that have been running now. And I remember seeing photos of people, but not seeing a video of somebody all day, and it felt like I was very disconnected from people. So it really can help with that connection. Alistair, I see that you've joined twice. If you're having any problems, do let us know, but I think once is in the browser, so you're just probably seeing what that experience is like. Jane says in the chat window, you can see people's reactions. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's been surprising how much emotion comes over, which helps the atmosphere of the group. You're absolutely right, Jane. And I think you bring up a really great topic about it's seeing people when actually we probably don't usually see them. And just seeing surprise on people's faces or a little smile when somebody said something a bit funny. That's the stuff that often we lose when we don't have the webcams on. So it's really nice to be able to have that and generate that connection and that atmosphere. Fiona says, using it because I've wanted to build connection and be able to see my groups. The groups are small in size, and so possibly it's easier to manage than larger groups. And I think you make a great point, Fiona. We're often talking about the size of our groups, and Mike is going to go and find a link to a blog that we've got, which is all about kind of how many people, how long should your session be. And I think it's really nice to be able to do that, because then you can make more of a connection with individuals. And Fiona says, and so that people can meet my cat. And Jackie's smiling about that too. Okay, and I think all of those things are really important. There are some reasons not to use the webcam at the moment. And in chat, what might they be? There are some reasons not to use the webcam at the moment. In chat, what might they be? Yeah, Fiona, it's bandwidth. In the situation we're in at the moment, we're in kind of mid-April 2020. The coronavirus, I'd like to say it's at its peak, I don't know, but certainly working from home is at its peak. And you're absolutely right, it uses a ton of bandwidth. Now, most systems can allow you to set your bandwidth, can allow you to set the quality, if you like, up or low. And also, so that kind of reduces bandwidth. And some of the bigger companies, things like Netflix and YouTube, are setting kind of low so they're not eating all the bandwidth up. Mike points out, kids on a rampage in the background. Yeah, that BBC interview. Anybody? It's the norm now. And Alistair says it can be a distraction from the content in some cases. So we've got two really major reasons. One is the current bandwidth level. If we weren't in coronavirus times, that would be less of an issue, but it's still a bit of an issue for some countries, some provinces, some buildings even, so that can be an issue. And as Alistair said, the distraction, not everybody likes it, and sometimes we want people to focus on the chat or the activity or the whiteboard, so it can be judicial use of that webcam. Okay, so we've got a question in the question and answer pod. Thanks, Fiona, for your question. You say, are we saying video on but audio off? I think the short version is yes, Fiona. I'd always recommend having audio off when people join, and then it's kind of enabling that, because especially at the moment, as opposed to virtual classrooms previously to coronavirus, but especially now, people are coming in, they've got a lot more going on at home, working from home. And I think some of the audio interference that we can get is a little bit kind of more prevalent that we've got at the moment. So I'd always start with audio off, but really encourage and get people working on that. So what I would normally do in a virtual classroom or a small session is, as people join in, they'd have their audio off, but I say, hi Bob, welcome to the session, get them typing in chat so I know they're there. Or if you've got webcams on, you'll see that they're there, as opposed to walking off to get a cup of tea. And then say, I'm going to unmute you, or can you unmute, and then have a conversation with them, which basically is a version of, can we hear each other, and is it all working? So that's how I would approach that, Fiona. But if people have different ideas, that's what we've got the chat window for. And Jane asks a good question as well about how does one save the chat in Adobe Connect? So there's different ways of doing this. It all depends on what is going on with the security and everything that's set up. The short version, Jane, is I will save the chat and I can email that to you. That's absolutely no problem. The chat, though, is also actually in the recording. So Adobe Connect includes the chat in the recording. So when you go and look at this on YouTube later, you'll be able to see it. Zoom doesn't do that, and Saba Meeting doesn't do that. So you will actually see this in the video, which is really quite nice. And if you want something from the chat, just drop me an email. It does help with the links. You're absolutely right, Jane. So if you want the chat, just drop me an email and I will more than happily send that to you. Absolutely no problem at all. If you've got a few more questions, do drop them in that Q&A. we are coming towards the end of our session. I can't believe these half an hours run so quickly. There was something in the chat that I wanted to pick up. We were talking about using the webcam, or why not to use the webcam. And Alistair said some presenters also feel less comfortable with the camera on. And I think that's a really good point too. Whilst I will happily put the camera on, and I do so at the beginning and sometimes at the Q&A at the end if we're running it, I am aware that I'd like to speak into the webcam, i.e. to have what looks a bit more like eye contact with people. Whereas, you know, one of the nice things with running a webinar or a virtual classroom session is you can have your notes handy. Now, I'm not saying you should read from a script, absolutely not. But you can have those more handy than you might do face to face. There's also more to look at on the screen. So you've got the chat window, you might have notes from a producer like I do with Mike, and you might want to be looking around your screen, and it can look a little bit like you're not paying attention then. So it does make me feel very slightly less comfortable to have that camera on in those situations. So that's a really good point as well, Alistair, thank you. What I'd like to do is still encourage you to use that Q&A if you have a few more questions. But what we're going to do is move into a reflection. And I want to ask you a question. And that question is, what did you learn from today's session? So you might notice we've got another chat window on the screen. This is something that Adobe Connect can do that other systems can't, and I absolutely love it for this. So all you need to do is click in at that other chat window next to the light bulb about what did you learn today, what's your light bulb moment. And just like we were talking about earlier on, what's top of mind, what's fresh for you that maybe you learned new, maybe you relearn, or you've just experienced something today, and that's nice too. So what's fresh and top of mind of what you've learned? So what is fresh and top of mind for what you've learned today? So Diane says swim lanes. Thank you. Ah, yes, the slide with the table on. You just use your annotation tools over the top. Great idea, Diane. I'll try and have a slide for that for another Q&A for another time to show you. Jane says techniques for slowing down the response time. And I think that's a really interesting question that you asked, Jane, about that. Because we don't want the sessions to be so pacey that people don't have that time for that deep reflection and really thinking about a question. But that will depend a lot on your topic and how you want to design and deliver it. Natalie says swim lanes also. That's new to me. Fantastic. Really glad you picked that one up. Alistair says a bit product focused about Adobe Connect, but I really like the use of both Q&A and chat at the same time. I've not done that before. Thank you, Alistair. I think, to be fair, Alistair usually does really big webinars with hundreds of people. So it's all about using the right tool for the job. So thank you, Alistair, for that. Fiona says a useful tip are either way to get everyone to engage and then share their ideas at the same time. Yeah, that chat, hold and send can be useful. I use that when we're talking about how often should we interact. And it's a great way to get people's thoughts initially, and then we usually open up our microphones and use the whiteboard and go into the topic in more detail. So it's about building that up, that conversation. Jackie says, good to experience the pace of your Q&A. Thank you, Jackie. And Diane says the chat, hold and send. Absolutely brilliant. Some really lovely stuff that you shared there. And if you want to share more, that chat window is still on the screen. That is all we have time for today. Thank you so much. Mike is going to share the link to our community. It's completely free. It's completely open. You can go and see what's there already. You can also join up for free, and you can use that to go and ask all of your questions, anything that you want in between Q&As. And also on that community, we've got another Q&A next week. So do come and join us for that. And we've got one scheduled for the week after. So thank you very much, everybody. Absolutely lovely to have you here. On behalf of Michael and myself at Lightbulb Moment, have a great day and stay safe. And we hope to see you soon.